Welcome to the Lonnie Swain Show podcast. I'm your host, Lonnie Swain, media veteran, content creator, and storyteller. I'm a New Orleans native currently based in Los Angeles, California. This podcast is all about sharing our stories, support, and resources to inspire, encourage, and empower our listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and share with at least 3 people. Continue the conversation online at LonnieSwain.com. Now, let's get into the show. Welcome to the Lonnie Swain Show podcast. Joining me today is J.St.Jaimes. And go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody. Let them know who you are, what it is you do, how you do it, and all that good stuff, if they're not already familiar.
Okay, so my name is J.St.Jaimes. I am what I like to call a creative multi-hyphenate. And basically what that means is I'm a creative through and through. Mm-hmm. So by profession, I am a makeup artist. But prior to that, I've been painting since I probably could pick up a brush or anything with my hands. So I'm a makeup artist, I'm a painter, a sculptor, a designer, a photographer, a
plant mom.
Yeah, I'm a plant mommy. I'm pretty obsessed about all of these plants. They're very spoiled. They have their own lights and you know, all types of goodness. But yeah, I'm just a super creative. That's what I've always done. Aside for, my little stint in corporate America. But besides that, I am a creative at heart.
Love it. And so since you mentioned it, just out of curiosity, what was your stint in corporate America and what did you do and how did you take that path?
Yikes. Okay. So I was a marketing manager for 7 years. I started off at an ad agency though, out of undergrad. And I was doing media buying and planning for an ad agency, and then went to grad school, blah, 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 got recruited. And then that's when the whole marketing thing happened. So 7 years later, I was a marketing manager, and then I was also teaching college business. So I taught college business for 6 years as well. And then my last job, when I was in marketing, I hated it. It was tragic. And I quit.
Okay.
I quit. When did I quit? July 4th of 2012.
Okay.
And so I haven't been back since.
For anyone that's noticing me wiping my eyes off camera, I've called myself putting some makeup on and my eyes don't know what's going on because they're like, we haven't had any makeup on this whole pandemic, girl. What is you doing? So now my eyes are like watering like crazy. But anyway, it sounds like a common case of a creative who is trying to take the quote unquote safe route, or maybe were discouraged or didn't feel like you could make a living or a full career out of your passions and your creative pursuits. And so it's like, okay, I'm going to go into this. And then you get into a corporate position, a corporate field, and it's like everything in your body is like, no, this is not what you're supposed to be doing. Would you say it was that, or?
I would say yes and no for me. I still love marketing to this day. Like if there was an opportunity that I was just like, oh my gosh, this is like the greatest thing ever, I may even think about it, right? But okay. I think my last company was just not the business. Like I was the only Black girl there. At the time, I used to have super long locks. It was like issues with hair. It was a really bad environment. And then, when I was telling people like, man, I want to quit, people were like, what? Like I literally had the quintessential, you made it corporate gig. Like we had moved into a new space. I designed the office. Like I had my corner office. I'm looking across the street. It's like the Sears Tower. Like literally was like the dream, making all this money. And I was miserable. And I was like, yeah, no, this is not worth it. Okay. And I kind of quit. And At the time, I did have my studio. I had a makeup and an art studio, but I was traveling like every 2 weeks. So I was never there. I never got a chance to be creative. And I was just kind of like, this is not worth it. So luckily, I'm really good with money. So I was stacking money and I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to quit. And I just quit. And then the struggle began. But yeah, so yes and no on that. Yes and no.
Okay. So tell us what the struggle was.
The struggle for me, it took me a long time to figure out what success was. When you come from the corporate space, right, you think that success is landing a new client or closing a deal. And at the time, I was working with people, you know, the budgets were like a meal to begin with. So these weren't like small clients. These were like major brands. And so once I decided to be an entrepreneur, I was thinking, I kind of felt like I lost my identity, or I lost what it meant to be successful, because now I didn't have that, right? So it took me a long time to get to a point where I had to change the way that I thought about success. So success in the corporate world is landing a client, but success on, you know, the entrepreneur side is, hey, guess who built their own website? Guess who created, you know, all the marketing and branding for their website? Guess who took this picture? Guess who did blah, blah, blah. So it took me a long time to change the way I was thinking. Like, okay, yeah, you don't make all this money that you made over here, but guess what you're doing over there? You're still successful. It's just different. It's just in a different space. So that took me like years.
Yeah.
It took years to get there.
And that's what I was going to say. That definitely can take years to do. And it's an ever evolving definition of what success is at every stage and phase in your life. And even in entrepreneurship, in the early infancy of your business, success is going to look different from what it looks like in the middle of your business after you've been doing it for so many years. And so what do you think some of the things or motivators or things that kind of helped you to reshape what that idea of success was? What were some of those things? How did you get to the point of accepting a new idea of what it was?
Faith. I don't know how you can be an entrepreneur and don't have faith, because it's hard. And I feel like, you know, these days, everybody wants you to be an entrepreneur. It's like, ooh, don't work for the man, do blah, blah, blah. But I feel like, I don't know if I necessarily believe that, because I feel like some people do very well going to a 9-to-5, getting that every 2 week check. And some people do very well as an entrepreneur. I just feel like it's knowing who you are first, because some people aren't go-getters. Some people are not gonna, I have invoices. Some people don't want to do that. So, but for me, I think it was faith, because you have to be able to believe that, you know, whatever you believe. But in my case, you know, I feel like God never, you know, let me down. And I was always reminded by the small little things, like, hey, you had this little victory. Okay, God got you, girl. Keep it moving. So for me, it's definitely faith. It's definitely being consistent, because I don't know any other way to get past. There were times where I wanted to lay in the street, like literally wanted to lay down.
I think probably like, every entrepreneur has had that moment once or twice a month, or once or twice a year, depending on, you know. And
it's definitely gotten better, because you see the little things. And there were things where I always laugh at this, like, God, you funny. Like I was straddling the fence for a long time too. Like, okay, I'm not making no money in this makeup world. Let me try to apply to 20 more corporate jobs. I didn't get a one. Do you hear me? Like, I would go to an interview, great companies. I would go to an interview. They would be like, next. The next like couple days, I would get like a makeup gig, and that's how it would happen. And I would be like, "You funny guy, like this what you own? Like, so you really want me to do this and not
like
this?"
Saying nope, and because you know it's nothing but that and his discernment, because you know you qualified, you know you are, you know, would be a good fit for the role, but it's just like his way of saying, his or her way of saying, you know, depending on who you believe God
Right.
is,
Oh, absolutely.
you know, but just saying like, this is not what I want for you.
Yeah, like this is not what you're supposed to be doing. Focus your energy on this. Like everybody has gifts, everybody has a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Activate this, activate your purpose and move in that. Like that's what I've learned. That's like the biggest thing that I've learned.
Mm-hmm. And so in transitioning from canvas to skin, how did that come about?
So I am so not the makeup girl. Like if you know me, you know that I'm not the makeup girl at all, but I can paint. So most people don't know that I can draw, even though I always tell people I draw feelings and not people.
Okay.
But one of my friends at the time when I was living in Atlanta, he was a makeup artist, and he had a wedding or something one weekend, and his assistant like totally disappeared. And he was like, you should just be my assistant. And I was like, what? I don't do makeup. I don't wear makeup, blah, blah. He's like, but you can paint, which means that you understand color theory. Okay. But I didn't wear makeup, like literally. And he was like, you just mix up the foundations. I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be a nightmare. So I did it. It wasn't as much of a nightmare as I thought it was gonna be. Nobody looked crazy. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I kind of like this. And then I just kind of started doing it. I mean, I don't have a background where most people are like, hey, you know, I used to work at the makeup counter, or I used to, you know, work on a brand or whatever. I didn't have that experience. So everything I had was, all I knew how to do was mix some colors and paint on canvas. I never had that. So I just practiced. I practiced on everybody. I didn't really practice on me, but I practiced on all my friends. And then I had the goal to say, hey, I want to be signed to an agency. Like I want to work with models and do all of that. And I kind of worked at that for a couple of years. First time I had a meeting, they were like, yep, negative. You need to go back and do
practice some more.
Well, you know what? It wasn't even practice some more. It was, my book was very, I don't even know how to, I'll say experimental. Like it was very much so like,
not what they were looking for, or
no, it was just very just extra. Like it was just doing a lot. And you know, when you go to an artist agency, they want your work to look a certain way. So
wasn't polished, maybe what they would say.
It wasn't polished, and it was very not the Chicago market, because at the time the Chicago market was, you know, e-commerce, catalog. So when you think of like catalog, it's like fresh face, skin, blah blah blah. It wasn't like cat eye and purple this. It just wasn't like that. And so I had to go back and redo it. And I came back maybe it was either close to a year later, and then they were like, now we like it, and they signed me. Nice. But that took like 3 or 4 years of trying to practice and get my life together. So it's definitely wasn't quick.
And did you feel like, or do you feel like not taking the traditional route of going to a beauty counter first, do you think that delayed the process, or do you think that was a barrier at all?
No, I don't think it delayed it at all. I think if anything, having the background that I had, you know, coming from another world, like coming from marketing, has helped, because I've seen, you know, both sides of the business. Like I've been on shoots, you know, and people are like, I don't know, it's like all types of people there. Like, because I've been on the other side, I know how to interact with the account managers, and I know how to interact with the art director. Like, so it's like I've seen kind of every side of the business. Sure, it would have been beneficial to work at a counter, or, you know, even just for customer service experience. But again, I was in marketing. I worked in sales support. There's all that is customer service. So I think it was just literally a transferring of skills. And and that was another thing that I had to think about too. Like, girl, you may not have done this, but you did this, this, and this. And it's the kind of the same thing. You just have to put yourself in a different mode. So definitely wasn't a hindrance. It was definitely a blessing in disguise, and I didn't even realize it at the time.
And in that 3-year period that it took to get to the point where you wanted to get signed and getting signed and all of those things, what were your motivators to keep going when you wanted to maybe, I'm sure there was some moments where you would go and lay out in the street during that time or after you got that first no. What did you channel to say, okay, let me go back and do some more work?
For me, I knew what I wanted, right? So I knew that, you know, at the time it was getting signed with the agency, but then after that it was like, okay, you want to work with these dream clients, right? These dream clients, you're gonna work until you get there. So for me, it was just, I work really well like on deadline, and I have to have goals. So it was just me just being like, hey, I'm motivated by those no's. And that's one of the things that I always say, to me, no's mean not yet. Like, I've gotten so many no's, like it doesn't even faze me at this point. I'm just kind of like, okay, well, let me just let you just sit back until I can change your mind real quick. So it was just really believing in who I am at the core to be like, no, you work too hard for this. Like, you use this, your former life, you don't want to go back there. You enjoy this. You enjoy being able to, you know, collab with people and work with creatives and work with the talent. Like, it was just a great feeling, and I just always wanted more of that. So it was like, if I can do more of that and get to, you know, the next level, then that's what I'm going to do. So I guess I was just intrinsically motivated. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that.
And I'm not familiar with the beauty world from the aspect of being signed to an agency. What about that was desirable to you as opposed to being, say, freelance, or what does that look like in comparison?
Well, at the time, it was legitimacy, right? Because, you know, you're like, oh, you're signed with an agency. There's a different kind of
credibility.
Oh yeah, credibility, and you're kind of special because it's like, oh, okay, well, you must know how to do something halfway right because you know an agency has signed you. So yeah, I think back then it was credibility and it was tied to legitimacy. Now I'm freelance, so
Okay.
I mean it's a totally different thing. There are pluses and minuses to both. But it was definitely like, I definitely feel like it helped just initially, because when you are with an agency and you get that experience of working on set and working with photographers and talent, you understand set etiquette, you understand how to deal. Like, I've worked with some crazy people, like all types of temperament.
I can only imagine.
Oh yeah. It's wild. So it's definitely preparation, but you know, it was great to be on that agency side, and it's also great now being on the freelance side. So it was definitely a great experience. I wouldn't take it back.
So if someone is listening who may be in the beauty world, what would you say are maybe, I think you did a good job of kind of saying what some of the pluses were. What would you say are some of the minuses to being signed with an agency?
The percentage.
Okay.
So you know, like as a freelancer,
the coins. Okay, we got that's important.
What Drake say? I don't do percentages, right? I like all my coins.
Right.
Being signed with the agency, of course, they take a percentage between 15 and 20%. So that can.
But are they bringing you a lot of clients to where you wouldn't have access to them before?
So here's the thing. If you have a good agent, they should be bringing you opportunities, right? Especially in the beginning, you know, they should help you develop. They should have those opportunities open for you, because it isn't, sure, it's about the coins, right? But you also want to develop yourself as an artist, and a good agent and agency will help you do that. but they take a percentage, right? If you have a bad agent, and let's say it was, it's people on the board that aren't working, how?
Mm-hmm.
What's the point in having an agent, right? If nothing is guaranteed, so you can be signed to an agency and still not work.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, if you have a good agent, they will vouch for you. They'll make sure that you're good. If you know that your book needs to be developed even more, they should be helping you try to do that. If you don't, you just sit on the board and you don't work.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
So,
And at this point in your career, you have worked on the set of Empire and The Shy. Did that come through an agency or was that through your own? Okay.
that came through me stalking people. I'm not even lying. I am very much so.
There are no charges pending, huh?
Oh, but my friends will tell you that I am hella resourceful. So what I did for that, like I still to this day, like if it's something that I want to work on, I'll go. I'm the person that stays at the movies and goes through the credits to be like,
wait, hold on. Y'all better get y'all pen and paper. Write this down.
Like, such and such was the makeup department head. Such and such was I don't even care. The makeup assistant, such and such. Like I have a list of
That's
people.
Good.
It doesn't even matter like what department. I will like look, write their names down. I will stalk them so I can figure out what their email address, their social media handle, and I'll reach out to them. I feel like a lot of the things that I've gotten in terms of TV were me reaching out to people and just being like, hey, my name is such and such. This is what I do. Here's my portfolio. And I'll say something else. People ask me all the time the same question that you asked, like, how did this happen? So I'm like, I stalked. I was resourceful. But you also have to be prepared. I think that a lot of people just think you're supposed to reach out and then it happens. I had websites. I had all of this other stuff so that at any point in time, because what happens if they reach back out and say, I would love to have a meeting with you to discuss X, Y, and Z, and you don't have no website.
Right. Or I'd love to have me sit in your portfolio. And it's like, let me try to scramble something together.
I can't tell you how many times people have been like, hey, do you have somebody that you could recommend for X, Y, and Z? And I'm reaching out to people. I'm like, hey, sis, bro, what you got? And they like, oh, I got an Instagram. That works sometimes, but people want to really see your work. Like they want to see presentation is major in this industry. Like images is major and presentation is major. So you have to be prepared because you never know. Like literally you have to stay ready so you don't have to get ready because the opportunities will just fly on by to the next person because you weren't ready.
Right. Yeah, that is a word. And I definitely have seen it. And that goes across any industry, whatever any industry you're in, staying ready so you don't have to get ready. A lot of people, especially now with social media, people are very accessible. So you can reach out directly to people, but, be ready if they do reach back out and say, okay, you said you could do X, Y, and Z. Let me see what you have, and you don't have anything to present.
I'm telling you, I see it all the time. Even now with, everything going on with COVID, like people, like clients that are reaching out really need you to have like all of these certifications. Like, did you take, the disinfecting, the sanitation course? Do you have COVID protocols? I got all of that stuff. I was just waiting on people to be like, do you have this, this, and this, this? Because I've had clients, I've had clients say, oh, this is great that you have this information because this is the stuff that we need. So you got to be prepared when you're reaching out to people, because I'm telling you, it may look like a lot of work in the beginning, but it will definitely pay off in the end because you can just go ahead, put all your files in there, click send, and you're good. Versus you trying to scramble.
And so that's a great segue. How has your industry been impacted by COVID?